I have been a big defender of influencer boxing over the years. I've observed it since the beginning, going back to the KSI vs Joe Weller livestream, and it's insane to watch how it's developed. That being said, in 2025, the landscape has changed for the worse. The two major players of YouTube boxing, KSI and Jake Paul, have just become frustrating to watch, and both guys are massive hypocrites. Before we get into that, the fact that KSI vs Jake Paul hasn't happened yet is an absolute travesty. I don't care about whatever big event or opponent they're trying to sell, KSI and Jake Paul is the biggest fight you can make in the crossover space. Jake and his team will say that he is a level beyond YouTube boxing, in which he has broken out and become a well-known figure in the sport, but his career and opponent choices haven't reflected that. Still to this day, I defend him fighting Tyron Woodley and Anderson Silva. Both of them are retired MMA champions, but at the time, Jake didn't have much boxing experience at all, so he needed to find guys that would give him a challenge in the striking realm. Exceptions include Ben Askren, but also opponents that were beatable. He didn't have an amateur background, so he needed to make up the difference somehow. Then he fought Tommy Fury after Anderson, and at the time I was like, this is it, win or lose, he's officially a boxer and should fight boxers of his age and skill level. However, Jake Paul lost and went back to fighting MMA guys or tomato cans. Oh, and that Mike Tyson fight was probably the lowest point in his career. Sure, a lot of people watched on Netflix, but he's now truly rinsed the old retired fighter coming back to fight narrative. He has nowhere to go besides fighting actual age-appropriate boxers. He now has changed the channel heat, and pay-per-view buys will plummet if he fights, I don't know, a Masvidal or even a Chavez Jr. The whole "I want to become world champion" line that Jake and his team spout is a grift, and MVP is an entertainment company just as much as Misfits Boxing. Don't tell me that Misfits is just a circus while MVP is for real upcoming boxers when they put that kid from Euphoria on their pay-per-view. Dean the Great would fucking murder this dude. On the other hand, nobody from KSI's team should criticize Jake Paul's opponents for being old when Nate Diaz, Tony Ferguson, and Donald fucking Cerrone were potential headliners for Misfits 21. KSI and Jake Paul have 3 years shy of a decade of boxing experience. They shouldn't be fighting old men or guys from a completely different sport anymore. KSI clowned Jake Paul for fighting Mike Tyson, rightfully so, but then he goes ahead and announces a bout with Wayne Bridge, a 47-year-old footballer. That is blatantly hypocritical, and both of these guys have become utter clowns of the sport. I hate saying that because influencer boxing got me excited about boxing to begin with. And I remember the days when KSI put it all on the line with Logan Paul during the rematch. After he just grinded out a draw in the first KSI-Logan fight, KSI took on the bigger, longer man in his back garden with no head guards. It was a massive risk, but it ultimately paid off. KSI took home the decision win, and it elevated him to new heights. That being said, nowadays KSI and Jake Paul are both just playing it safe with their opponents, and it's a far cry from what both have achieved earlier in their boxing careers. At least with KSI, he never claimed he was a full-time boxer or had delusions of being a world champion. He's trying to make big domestic fights to push Misfits, I get that. But if there's no risk and people can predict the exact outcome perfectly, then fans are going to be way less hyped or inclined to buy the event. Yes, you can throw out a big UK name like Wayne Bridge and then put him in the ring, but if there's no jeopardy, there's no point in watching. Same goes with Jake Paul fighting Mike Tyson. After that horrendous event where Tyson threw about 3 punches and Jake carried him to a decision, I don't care what anyone says, Jake fucking carried him to a decision. Why would anyone want to watch any future Jake Paul fights? If KSI and Jake Paul don't fight each other, or at least credible boxers on their level, not MMA fighters, not athletes, but boxers, then honestly, I don't care. At one time, influencer boxing had traditional boxing's number in regards to making the fights we wanted to see into a reality. but now it's the exact opposite. And I think after the Jake Paul vs Mike Tyson contest and the KSI vs Wayne Bridge announcement, a lot of fans are pretty much fed up. Influencer boxing has done a lot of good for the sport. I might make a separate video on how, but unfortunately 2 of its biggest stars have stagnated. Whatever the reason for not making the KSI vs Jake Paul fight is, weight, purse, their careers going in different trajectories, whatever it is, the fight is pretty much gridlocked, and as much as I'd want to see it, I'm not holding my breath. Nobody is ducking anyone, I just truly think that in Jake and his team's mind, they're too big for the KSI fight, and with Mams and KSI, it's the weight that's the biggest point of contention for them. Either way, I don't see this fight happening anytime soon, and it'll become the AJ vs Fury of influencer fights. Tell me what you guys think, and I'll catch you down the road.